Warning: this review contains all of the spoilers. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to be spoiled, click off now. Come back later when you have seen the movie and give me views then. Shit's been out for almost 3 months now, so what are we doing here? Come on. If there's one thing I know about myself, it's that I love Mario. And of the many Mario games I've played, my favorite is Super Mario Galaxy. Hell, I'd go as far as to say the game is my actual favorite of all time, not just in the Mario series. I could explain why, but chances are you already get the gist. So I bet you can imagine how not really excited I was for the Mario Galaxy movie at first. I figured I would like it, assuming it was more of the first movie, not a masterclass in storytelling or anything, but a fun adventure that near perfectly encapsulates what makes this franchise great. I rewatched that first movie shortly before Galaxy came out, and I still really liked it, to be frank. But the discourse surrounding this movie before and shortly after it came out created some of the most obnoxious conversations surrounding anything I have ever encountered. From the moment the first trailer dropped, people were complaining and making wild assumptions based on very little context. How can it be Galaxy when Bowser Jr. goes Wonder mode? Wonder is not Galaxy. There's no Rosalina in this specifically Yoshi-oriented trailer. Is Rosalina not in the movie? Why is there non-Galaxy stuff in my Galaxy movie? Why isn't it a completely and utterly faithful adaptation? It's hard to make fun of those overdramatic worries now because some of them were sort of vindicated, but it sure was not a fun time to talk about this movie, and that definitely dampened my excitement. And then the review embargo lifted the day before it came out, and oh god, we'll get to that. We'll get to all of that. But how about the movie itself? Did I end up liking it?
You want to talk about it?
No.
Actually, yes, what am I talking about? This is a review. The Super Mario Galaxy movie, in a way, was more of the same as the first film. It was very flawed, but still had a lot of fun characters and scenes. I've seen the sentiment passed around a bit that the good stuff from the first movie is twice as good, and the bad stuff from the first movie is twice as bad, which I somewhat agree with. I'd say it's more like 1.5 times, personally. After my first viewing on release day, I knew pretty much immediately that I needed to see it again to iron out my thoughts, because I could see my score going up or down. Now that I have, I think I can confidently assign it a score, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with the good stuff. The animation and score are predictably fantastic. The colors in this movie really pop, and the action is still really well choreographed. There's a ton of visually stimulating ideas that are brought to life perfectly, particularly all of the actual space stuff and Bowser Jr.'s paint. The paint in general looks really good in this movie. I also love the way Bowser Jr.'s mask moves when he goes all prowler mode or whatever. Bowser Jr. in general is a surprisingly very fun character to look at, easily the most visually interesting character in either of these movies. On first watch, none of the action scenes quite hit me as hard as the first films. Maybe it's just because I've seen it so many times, but I can easily go through the first one in my head and pick out every major action sequence. That wasn't the case for this movie at first, but I think that's just because the Galaxy movie is mostly action. There are a few very short scuffles, like when Rosalina tries to escape Bowser Jr. near the start of the movie, and the montage of Mario and the gang fixing problems around the Mushroom Kingdom. But all of these little scenes are still very enjoyable, and the major set pieces stick it out in my mind a lot better post-rewatch. There's the Mega Leg fight at the beginning, Bowser Jr. confronting the Bros and Yoshi after stealing the castle via UFO, and the castle subsequently plummeting onto the Honey Hive planet. The big Mario 2 homage with Peach and Toad, which is notably one of the only scenes in the actual movie to incorporate the game's gravity mechanics. Bowser Jr. chasing the protagonists in Fox's R-Wing, the Yoshi's Island / Fossil Falls detour, the part where they actually make it to Planet Bowser, the Mario Maker scene, the bridge fight, and the final battle. That's a lot. And I wouldn't blame anyone if all these fights blended together in their head, but I enjoyed all of them. The various power-ups and little references are genuinely really cool to see in a big-budget movie like this, even if they can't carry the movie on their own. We'll get to that, calm down. In context, the score weirdly didn't hit me as hard as I thought or hoped it would. It obviously sounds great and makes expert use of old and new motifs, but I feel like not quite enough. I felt like it leaned on a few themes in each scene and throughout the whole experience more instead of throwing a bunch at you in pretty close sequence, which makes it a little less interesting to listen to in my opinion. It's weird that this element of the movie is the one that felt held back, because I think it's the one part where just throwing a shit ton of references at the wall could only be a good thing, but they kinda don't. Or maybe the references were just too subtle, I don't know. Still, a fantastic follow-up to the first movie's score. I even listened to it while writing this. All of the Galaxy motifs were fun, although there's basically nothing from Galaxy 2. There is a short snippet of Forest Dwellers from that game in the soundtrack, but for whatever reason it doesn't play in the movie. Like, it's pretty obvious where it should be, but there's just no music there. Hell, it felt like most of the musical Galaxy references were just a few themes put on repeat. There was a little bit of Melty Molten Galaxy in the credits though, which is a genuine contender for my favorite Mario OST, and they had the Pikmin End of Day theme when those little dudes showed up, so I can't complain too much. I should also probably touch on the licensed music in this section, huh? It was fine. There are 2 uses of licensed music near the beginning of the movie, 3 if you count Luigi singing That's Amore, but I don't think anyone has a problem with that. And they all work. One is just uses diegetic music during Peach's birthday celebration. I think the other one almost entirely replaces one of my favorite tracks in the score, but also the Notorious B.I.G. playing over Yoshi exploring New York is just inherently funny to me, so I don't find it nearly as offensive as, I don't know, Take On Me being shoehorned into the Donkey Kong sequence and completely replacing one of my favorite tracks in the first movie. I'm not salty. Weirdly enough, one of my favorite parts of the score was the Star Fox motifs. I'm not even a huge Star Fox fan, but hearing those themes in a movie like this was great. Fox in general is probably the coolest character in the movie. I was really worried about him having too much of a presence, and while I'd say he does overstay his welcome a little, that's mainly because the movie is so short. But yeah, I didn't have too much of a problem with him here. I made a whole video about how I was worried about his inclusion, but it ended up being fairly tasteful. And while we're on the topic of characters, here's my thoughts on each of the main ones, or something. Luigi and Yoshi don't really have a lot to do, they're just kind of along for the ride, but I feel like that's fine. They're both super charming and genuine assets to the team. Yoshi maybe dipped a bit too much into annoying and cute animal sidekick territory, but not really. Charlie Day's voice continues to be super fitting for Luigi, and Yoshi's voice acting is weirdly great. You could argue that it's too deep for Yoshi, but I don't care. Good job, Mr. Gambino. Peach is a bit of a weird one. I didn't love her characterization in the first movie, but I have come to terms with the fact that some of these characters aren't going to be identical to their game counterparts. Her voice is still fine, maybe even a little more convincing than in that first movie, and her connection with Rosalina gives her some personal stake in the plot. Oh, and Toad is another character who's just along for the ride on this one, and that's fine, he had a similar role in the first go-round, but then he just gets shafted in the climax and only reappears alongside Fox once the day is saved. Okay then. I still like his voice, and he's not annoying, so that's nice. As for Bowser Jr., we've already discussed how cool he is visually, but I also liked his voice acting. He sounds nasally and childish, but he can still come off menacing, especially with his Wonder form. There are a couple line reads where he sounded kinda weird, like, "Sure you don't want to try that no again, guys?" No? Okay. A lot of people weren't big on his eyes when his design was first revealed, but I think it works for this version of the character. It allows him to be more expressive and connects his design to his dad's more. One of my favorite parts of Bowser's movie design is how his irises flare up and kinda glow when he's angry, so I like how Junior can theoretically do the same now. Speak of the devil, Bowser is also still great in this movie, from his voice acting to his animation. I was especially iffy on his character arc at first, mostly because I felt like having an internal struggle over harming Mario and the gang felt out of character, especially for this version of him, who got so angry after Peach ruined his wedding with her that he immediately tried to flame grill her ass. But I've warmed up to it. At the end of the day, Bowser is a villain with a heart, and his internal conflict is believable to some degree. And I definitely don't agree with those people saying they gave him a character arc and gave up on it by the end, or whatever. Were you expecting Bowser to turn good? His son pulling him back to the dark side is honestly the most clever writing decision they made in this whole movie. It's an inversion of a typical character arc. It's not that hard to understand. I also just really liked Bowser and Junior's relationship in this movie. It kind of subverts the whole manipulative parent plotline by giving Junior that role. They also have some cool fight scenes, and the puppet show flashback is really cute. Another thing people have brought up are some lines of theirs that have been deemed corny, I guess. Specifically near the end, Bowser Jr. says, "Prepare to meet your maker," and Bowser says, "Feel my fury." There are probably some other lines I'm forgetting, but whatever. These are obviously allusions to certain Mario games, and so that makes them bad and proof that this movie is pure reference slop. But not only do these lines feel completely natural in the context of the movie, but Bowser and Jr. are the only ones saying shit like this. If everyone was saying shit like, "Man, this adventure sure was an odyssey," then I'd agree. But they're not. It's just these two, and it makes sense because they're more theatrical and exaggerated than the other characters. Not an issue in the slightest, come on now. I gotta say though, Dry Bowser looked a little off to me. Like, he's animated a lot flimsier than he should be, and his proportions are kinda wonky. Not a huge issue since that design has like 3 minutes of screen time, but still something I thought I should bring up as a personal gripe. Speaking of personal gripes, I'm not huge on Mario himself in this movie. This is something I haven't seen anyone else bring up as an issue, but essentially there were a couple moments where he felt completely out of character. One notable instance of this is him saying, "over my dead body," in the initial Bowser Jr. confrontation. Like, I get what they were going for, but it just doesn't feel like something he would say. It's pretty funny though, so I can't hate it too much. The other one is when Mario lashes out in anger against Bowser and hurts him, turning him normal-sized again. Reasonable crash out? Yeah. But again, it doesn't feel like something Mario would do. You might say that he was just giving in to Bowser's demands. While that might have been the case, there's clearly some rage in his reaction here. You might also say that it gives him more character. However, strawman that I just made up, I feel like what makes Mario such a compelling hero is his ability to look past his own biases and feelings to be the kindest and most helpful person he can, even to his worst enemies. He can still be sassy and fed up at times, obviously, and I did say that I'm okay with these characters not being the same as in the games, but between this moment and him calling Bowser's painting trash, it feels like they took a step a bit too far in the wrong direction in this movie. They kinda make up for it in the end by having Mario save Bowser Jr., but not completely. Now you might be saying, this isn't that much of an issue, you're just nitpicking. And you're kinda right. I just wanted to bring it up. Also, Mario's characterization in this movie is perfectly fine for the most part, just not perfect due to the instances I just went over. And finally, we have Rosalina. As far as characterization goes, she's great. Hell, her voice and design work too. I just wish we got to see her for more than 6 seconds. If you've heard anything about Rosalina in this movie, it's that she doesn't have a lot of screen time. I'm pretty sure her having less than Fox is an exaggeration, and yet not a huge one. I would have loved to see her team up with Mario and the gang for the final battle, especially if Bowser turned giant like he is for the entirety of Galaxy 2, because it kind of felt like they were building up to that, but nope. I don't think she even speaks to any of the protagonists besides Peach. What a waste of not only good casting, but such a cool character. Although, to be honest, even though Rosalina is my favorite female Mario character, and her absence throughout most of the movie's runtime is really disappointing and definitely felt, I feel like I was never really as upset by it personally. Not as much as some other people. It's definitely something that should bother me, and it does, but I guess I just don't have the energy to care or something. Now, I've covered a lot of this movie so far, but you may have noticed that I've barely, if at all, touched on the story and pacing, probably the two most important things that the first movie didn't really get right. Maybe not as universally panned as its use of licensed music, but I digress. But yeah, how about that story? It's there. Super Mario Galaxy is the one mainline Mario game people actually bring up for a good reason when discussing the story. The main plot is pretty bog standard, it's basically just Mario butt in space, but where it really shines is Rosalina's storybook. It's not groundbreaking, but it's emotionally effective, adds intrigue to Rosalina as a character, and undeniably is the heart of the game, despite the fact that it barely affects anything else about it. Now, the Galaxy movie does try to do something similar with Rosalina and Peach, and while it does give Peach more of a personal stake in the story, and kinda makes Rosalina more interesting like the storybook does in the game, it doesn't do these things nearly well enough. The movie in general kinda tries to have themes about family, and while it works in some areas more than others, the execution overall is very sloppy. There are multiple points in the movie that are obviously meant to be big and impactful and whatnot, but they don't work because they weren't set up properly and weren't given enough focus earlier in the film. Peach and Rosalina reuniting is treated like a huge deal in this movie, but their connection wasn't elaborated on in any meaningful way. You're just supposed to feel sad that they got separated a long time ago, and happy when they inevitably come together. It's a functional arc, but not a good one. And that's probably the crux of this whole movie. The story functions, but it's not very good. The piss-poor pacing definitely doesn't help either. Unlike with the first movie, which rushes through almost everything, Galaxy actually feels decently paced at first. Things just take a turn straight off a cliff sometime after we get to the Gateway Galaxy. A culmination of both of these problems comes in the form of different characters currently spending the same amount of time doing things when they realistically shouldn't have. The best example of this is when what we'll call the Peach group, consisting of Peach and Toad, and the Mario group, consisting of Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, and, for a bit, Bowser, are split up in the first half of the movie. The Peach group takes off for the Gateway Galaxy about 23 minutes into the film. In the time it takes them to actually get there, the Mario group solves a bunch of problems in the Mushroom Kingdom, talks to Bowser, the castle gets taken by Bowser Jr. and his UFO, they fight Bowser Jr., and they get dropped on the Honey Hive planet. The Peach group gets sidetracked getting Toad's backpack from SMB2 land, but they defeat Wart and his goons there pretty quickly. After this, we see the Mario group go talk to the Honey Queen and get a ride from the depressed enslaved Mandibug. Also, Bowser gets left behind and found by Junior, and they do the flashback puppet stuff and all that, but that's not important. Then we see the Peach group talk to a bunch of walking reference slop and meet Fox. Cool, so where's the Mario group now? Oh, they're here now, just like that. So in the time it takes Peach and Toad to get to the Gateway Galaxy via launch stars, all of this shit with the Mario group happens. But then, when they fly on a fat-ass bug to get there from the Honey Hive planet, which seemingly isn't too far from the Mushroom Kingdom planet, all the Peach group does in that time is talk to a few people. That doesn't check out, right? And it's annoying because there are some really easy ways to fix this issue. Number 1. Give the Peach group more to do while waiting for the Mario group. Number 2. Have the Peach group take off with Fox and have them meet up with the Mario group while they're still on their way to the Gateway Galaxy. Number 3. Just move some of the scenes around so that it doesn't look like the Mandibug is faster than the freaking launch stars, because that's stupid. Or just some other combination of those 3 fixes. Another thing that I found weird was how this movie seems to have 2 different definitions of the word galaxy. Like, they refer to places such as the Space Junk Galaxy as galaxies, but then Fox refers to the Space Junk Galaxy as the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Huh? I don't know, that's just something weird I noticed and didn't know when else to talk about it. It's another thing that feels indicative of the writer not really giving a shit. One of this movie's worst sins for me, though, is the final battle. Now you might be asking, what? It was so good! The fight choreography is so fluid and stylish. And I agree. Although ideally it would have taken place in space with Bowser becoming giant, the 2v2 with Drill Mario, Cloud Luigi, Dry Bowser, and Wonder Fury Bowser Jr., boy that's a title, is really cool. My problem with this scene comes after all that. I'm completely okay with the story not being one-to-one with the game. I'm completely okay with the movie not being 100% galaxy focused. I can handle Rosalina getting mostly shafted, and the fun gravity mechanics not getting used too much. I think it's funny that the main villain gets taken out by Mr. Game & Watch as a joke, because Bowser Jr. is gonna use his paint to do something crazy, right? And that crazy thing is a Mario Odyssey boss that doesn't even use its signature lightning powers from that game, eats Bowser Jr., and gets one-shot by Mario. The final threat of the Galaxy movie is a boss from Odyssey that gets taken out in one hit. It makes for some good Mario characterization, but it's so lame. They didn't have to do the same ending as the Galaxy game, but at least keep the scale of the conflict in the same ballpark as that. Also, have Rosalina do anything to help after Peach saves her. That would have made for such a natural final team-up, but nope, none of that. I really wanted to love this movie. I wanted to at least give it the same score as the first one. Mario is my favorite thing, like, ever, and Galaxy is my favorite game ever, but things just didn't quite pan out in my opinion. I love the animation and score, the action is fun, and all the little nods to the games are so neat. There really are some relatively deep-cut references in there, and I think it's so cool to see that stuff represented in a big Hollywood movie like this, even if just for a few seconds each. But the story and pacing are just too sloppy, and it somehow feels like they prioritized fan service both too much and too little in ways. More than anything, though, I am sorely disappointed in the fan and critic response to the film. You thought the discourse surrounding it before it came out was bad? Oh boy, do I have news for you. I just don't understand what was in the air around the time this movie came out, because not only were fans on both sides of the enjoyment spectrum extremely obnoxious, but the journalism and critical response was weirdly awful too. Low Rotten Tomatoes score? Whatever, it was to be expected. But then you have professionals saying shit like this. Yeah, that's a normal thing to say. Oh yeah, can't forget this one. This review in particular is pretty terrible. It's just 3 paragraphs of buzzwords and criticisms that barely count as criticisms. And I shouldn't have to point out how disrespectful it is to claim something made by real artists is worse than AI. People make jokes about things looking AI or being AI-esque all the time, but if you're gonna come out and say shit like this sincerely, then I don't think you deserve to be taken seriously. There are other weird reviews that I remember seeing, but I don't remember what they said, and I don't feel like looking for them. These are just a few reviews though, right? What about the fan response? Even worse, what were you expecting? I'm a very small YouTuber, so this is probably gonna fall on deaf ears, but something I've noticed about the internet that gets exacerbated with Nintendo products in particular for some reason, and I know other people have noticed this too, is that you can't just like or dislike something without someone vehemently disagreeing with you. If you say you dislike something and your post gets a lot of attention, then you can bet your ass a bunch of losers will come to its defense and call you every mean word in the book. And if you say you like something, the people might go as far as to come up with moral justifications for why you shouldn't like it, or just also harass you like the other guys. It sucks. I just want to talk about Mario. Whatever, it's been like a month since the discourse was that bad, but I still see the occasional person online claiming that the movie destroyed their crops and fucked their wives and called them gay or something. I don't know. What I do know is that I'm giving the Super Mario Galaxy movie a 6 out of 10. The first time I saw it, it was an iffy 6 out of 10, but after that rewatch, it's now a confident, solid 6 out of 10. I think that's fair, right?